All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Creator Cafe. It's the 10th episode, and I'm actually joined by Christian Duenas today. And Christian, do you want to give a little bit about your creative background and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm an amateur game developer, and creatively that combines a lot of different things. A lot of people don't think about what goes into a video game, but it's actually like this really unique blend of like technical and creative fields. So I'm working in coding, pixel art, and music mostly. And I started working on game dev about a year ago, and it's been a really fun journey since. So currently I'm working on a game called Natural Selection, and then I'm coding it in Python, and then I take care of all my pixel art and Sprite, and I'm going for like a little cartoony feel, kind of inspired by like classic retro games like Super Mario World, Yoshi's
Yeah, so
Island.
the old one you can on the NES, right?
Yeah,
Old one.
NES, Super NES, stuff like that. One, because I'm kind of limited in what I'm able to draw. I'm not like from an artistic background. I'm more from a technical background. I've studied statistics in school, so I've done a lot of math, science. So venturing out into the world of creativity and art, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's been a really fun one. And then it's also just the aesthetic I really like. Like if you look at my background, you see like
I
little
see a little
pixel art.
Pokemon picture back
Yeah,
there.
the little Pokemon picture, the pixel art flowers. So it's just an aesthetic I like, and yeah, it's kind of what I'm about.
That's cool. And also, what was like your inspiration for natural selection? Like, how did you end up on that idea? Because I know the main
Yeah,
character is a little duckling, right? I guess.
it's a little bit of a morbid story. So where
Oh,
I live, I'm out here in Riverside,
oh,
California,
my
and
cousins are there.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
Yeah,
cool.
where I live, there's a little pond, and every summer and spring, new little ducklings hatch at that pond. And then, like, I always go and just check up on them, see how they're doing, and one by one, you'll see one less duckling every time you go. So I'm like, oh man. So it's kind of heartbreaking to see, but it's kind of where I came up with the idea of like natural selection. Except, in my game, you get to let the duckling live, hopefully. So
Yeah, if you win, right?
if you win,
That's pretty cool. And then I know you've mentioned like you've like learned yourself, pixel art and like you do the music composition too, right, for your game?
yeah, I pretty much do everything. I'll have a little bit of help in the pixel art department with my girlfriend occasionally, but for the
That's
most
cool.
part, it's been a self project. And then the music I've pretty much done all by myself. I tried reaching out for help, but it was kind of hard because people just kind of come and go. They're
Yeah.
busy. So it's mostly just been me learning about music. And I haven't, my only experience with music is that in middle school, I was in band and I wasn't very good. And then in high school, I was
Yeah,
in
I
band
feel
for
that.
2 days, I think. And that was about it. So since then, I've had to learn things like theory, and I picked up like a little bit of piano along the way just to like get a feel for pitch and notes.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
cool.
mostly been like a self process.
And I know you're like an advocate for self-learning, right? So like
Yeah,
what would
definitely.
you do you want to expand on that a little bit? Like what would you advise people to like maybe expand their horizons, I guess, like exploring different kind of creative fields, and maybe that'll help even with like their main one as well, just learning different skills like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, we live in the age of the internet
Yeah,
where the greatest learning tool is literally right at your hands.
like YouTube.
So, YouTube, I personally love YouTube
Yeah,
for learning. So, I think anything really you want to do, like, there's no excuse to at least like dip your toes in the water. I think YouTube's a great place to do that. So for me personally, I started coding a little bit in school, but it wasn't until I started teaching myself on YouTube and just different, resources on the internet where like I really got into it. Because also the thing about self learning is you can kind of take it at your own pace.
yeah,
So
true.
yeah,
And
and
there's no like homework, to.
yeah, there's no homework, there's no semester course, 10-week course. Uh, some people really benefit from that routine or like discipline that comes from like school. But I think even along like what you learn by self learning. So if you're interested in like art or exercise, coding, whatever it might be. I think there's also like that discipline aspect you can teach yourself
True.
of just like getting things done and like motivating yourself to just get up and try to learn something new. So whatever that might be, I recommend everyone like have at least like one hobby that is just their hobby, not school, not some kind of like sport or like something that involves other people, but just something you're kind of working on your own. Just to like try and stay disciplined and like work on something long term.
Even as like a creative release too, because I'm sure like you have like other stuff like during the day and stuff, and then maybe you unwind, maybe developing your game. Is that the case,
Yeah.
or yeah?
Yeah, it definitely helps to be excited about something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like right now I'm on like I'm a statistics major in school. And I mean I like statistics, but it's not like the thing when I was a kid I fell asleep like, man, I can't wait to be a statistician one day.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's definitely like something that wakes me up, or like I'll just have like a eureka moment and I'm like, man, wouldn't this be really cool? And it's cool. It's a cool feeling to just like be able to like do it and then like see it on screen and like, whoa,
Yeah, definitely.
my dreams are kind of coming true.
And especially, I'm sure later on, if you see people like playing your game and stuff, then that's like a whole nother moment too.
Yeah, it's actually a really weird but really cool feeling of like watching people play your game. You learn a lot from like the way they interact with it. Like maybe you like coded in this little feature and you're like, it's gonna be so cool. And then like have no idea how to use it, or they find a way to break it and it's like, whoa, I didn't happen to see this at all, or I didn't see it this way. So it's really interesting, like just watching people interact with your game. And it also just makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, my favorite thing about like game development is like you have a bug, you cross that out and put a feature instead.
Yeah. That's definitely happened. I've
Really?
definitely done that.
In natural selection or like any other game or
I had another game called it was called Flightless. For some reason, all my games you play as birds. You played as like a penguin, and it was like a doodle jump game.
oh,
And what happened is that whenever you like press the space bar, the jump button, the penguin would kind of hover. And
huh.
there was some math technical reasons as to why that was happening, but I was like, what if I just kind of like added like a little squeak sound effect and kind of made it so the penguin was just like kind of trying to push itself up and just stopping the gravity momentum a little bit. So I
That's
just
cool. You
kind of
kind of
like
turned
took
it
that.
into like instead of like removing it, kind of made it part of the game.
Yeah, because I kind of just like, this is pretty fun. Maybe I could just like use it to make the gameplay a little more interesting.
What goes into like the coding behind that too? I know you mentioned like there's some creativity aspects in like the code as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, how familiar are you with coding, just by any chance?
Okay, little background. I've made stuff in Stencil. Do you know that game engine by any chance?
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's kind of like you have blocks of code and you kind of put them together to make actual code.
Hmm.
It's like there's like the logic is there, but then like you just kind of have to piece it together.
Yeah. So I like that. It's kind of like a Lego, huh?
Yeah,
Where you can
kind of,
kind of
yeah.
like move things around and see what happens. That's
There's like
definitely part
if
of the.
blocks and you put some other stuff like if this happens then like oh run this function, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely ways you can like play around with your code. The thing I like about code versus like just like straight up math is when you do math, it's very abstract, but there's also kind of only one right answer.
Yeah.
And there's no one there to like, other than the people who are there to tell you it's right or wrong. There's no way to really like play around with it too much. It's just kind of, you got to do it in your head or work it out. The thing I like about code is it's very interactive. So if you mess up on your code, it will let you know that you messed up, or you'll see it,
Oh yeah.
especially with games, because the way games work is if you don't do something correctly, you'll get a jumbled mess on your screen.
Mm.
So it's fun to like just move things around, and like if you get like issues, like okay, how do I? It's, like I said, it's kind of like a Lego set where you can like move things around, and okay, this looks bad. How do I figure this out? Play around with different things, and then just like all the, especially with like game design and coding, it's really interesting to see how exactly people figure this stuff out. Because a lot of like the like making a platforming game, for example, it's not a really intuitive process people had to figure out, okay, how do we like generate these worlds? Or we got to make
Or
little
like
tiles.
procedural generation and stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that, where it takes like a really creative person, I think, to actually figure this stuff out and just like implements it. Whereas it's not as maybe technical, but you have to like understand the process and you need to understand like how to implement it. Coding it is usually not the hard part. Usually the hard part is how do I wrap my brain around this like thing that I'm looking at.
And also, I'm sure like you kind of have to think from like the player's perspective too. Like, oh, how are they going to interact with like this platform and this object, or this
Yeah,
enemy and stuff.
absolutely. That comes in like the game design level, which is in my opinion completely separate from coding. You could be the best coder in the world, but making a game is just that's what I learned too is I think harder because that's where like it really forces you to like you said think about a player's perspective and you could have like really good ideas but they could still not be fun
Yeah,
or you have
true.
to find a way to make them fun.
Dude, it's so interesting because like, since you're a game developer, that you encompass like all of those different aspects, and I think that maybe people aren't really aware of like how much actually goes into like making a game.
Yeah, when I was a kid and I was like, oh, I want to make games, it was just kind of easy to think, you
Yeah,
just
I had
make
that same
games.
thing too, and then
Yeah.
like you get to it and it's just like it's a
Whoa, what is?
lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
more.
So that's kind of why I always wish I started earlier. But I guess if I want to give myself some excuses, I feel like that's the reason I ever did. I always thought of it like as an intimidating process because it really
Mhm.
doesn't look like it from the outside until you come in, and then you're like, "Whoa, I didn't realize I have to do all this stuff." And I think like a lot of people like the games that are, especially with the games being made today, and like all how many games are being pumped out. It's easy to think that like, oh, you just download Unity and make a
Yeah.
game 2 seconds, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And most people's favorite games were probably not made by one person. They were probably made by entire teams of people pooling their talents together. And these are like really creative, talented people. So it can be a really scary field to get into.
And then have you played Among Us?
I haven't actually. My friends
Really?
want to play it. I knew it's like the new game right now, but
Because I
I
think an
haven't
indie
tried it
studio
yet.
made it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so. I had heard that they canceled the second one,
Oh,
so because they want to focus on the first. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. But I do plan on playing it. I've heard really good things about it, and I know everyone's into it right now.
yeah, I just got it um like last weekend, and then it's interesting because like you mentioned, like there's like a small team behind that, and then like that game like blew up, and then I think it just comes to show like you don't need like the high end equipment, to like make a game that people enjoy playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I think of a game that you don't need like too much to enjoy, I always think of Flappy Bird. If you remember that
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
That was a really simple game. I actually made it on accident while I was making something else. It's
Was
just like
it
a really
was it
simple
Flight
game.
Jump or what did you say?
Flightless. Yeah, I think while
Flightless,
I
yeah.
was making that, I accidentally like stumbled on the physics for Flappy Bird, and I was like, this is a really simple game, but someone just like really made it work and really made it resonate with people. So yeah, you definitely don't need like high end graphics or like really deep gameplay to make something fun.
Do you think like the storytelling behind a game, do you think that really makes it like more unique and stand out?
Yeah, when it comes to game storytelling, especially from like a writing perspective, I think it's a lot different than like writing books or movies because
Hmm.
you always have that element of player choice, and that's always
True.
something you need to take into consideration. So I think when you're writing your game, you need to take account that the player can influence the world, and I think that makes writing I don't want to say it's harder, but it's like another layer that you need to consider.
And then especially probably like open world games where you can just like roam around yourself, make your own decisions and stuff.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
adds like
Like
a whole nother layer, like you were saying as well.
yeah, if you have like an open world game, you probably can't have like a character with specific character traits because maybe that's not the way the player wants to play the game,
Yeah.
So it just adds like new complexities you have to think about.
It kind of just made me think like, are you going to include different characters too in natural selection, or is it going to be the duckling mainly?
It's something I'm open to. It really depends because natural selection right now is to me like a bridge point. It's a game that I definitely want to make and I want to like put my all into it, but I don't want to stick around too long on one game
Yeah, true.
because I do want to like learn new things and make other games just to like one extend my portfolio, but two just to learn new skills because eventually like you get to the point of diminishing returns where you start to learn less and you just start to like really narrow down. So it's something I'm open to, but one day I might just wake up and be like, you know what, I think this I'm just gonna release this game and if there's no new characters, it's fine too.
Then maybe you get another idea, like, oh, this might be a cool concept for a new game.
Yeah. Actually, I guess on the subject of that, something that happened with my other
Oh, you
game
got
is
another project coming up already?
I've had some ideas, but I think I'm gonna switch over to probably a more sophisticated game engine before I tackle anything new. But I really want to finish Flightless. But
Oh,
I always release all my source code and all my assets because I'm really just about I just want people to play. I'm
yeah,
not super worried about money. Like I guess I'm kind of privileged to do that, but uh, and something that happened last time is someone actually went through and made some edits to my game. So they did some little bug fixes, which is pretty cool.
yeah.
So maybe if someone wants to add their own player character in natural selection or flightless or whatever, they definitely could.
Or what if someone makes like multiplayer version?
They could.
That'd be pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Modding is something I'm a huge supporter of. So I would personally be incredibly flattered if someone went through the trouble of like improving or just changing anything about any of my games.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like you can kind of tweak it to how you want to play, and adding different features that you want to see.
Yeah. I think it enters a little bit more of a gray area when you're working like with big companies like
Yeah,
Sony or Nintendo. Maybe they don't want you tampering with their stuff. But I think when it comes to like a lot of smaller studios or just like individual people, like we're usually pretty happy to see modders go in there because it just kind of shows like they were passionate about something that you made,
yeah.
to the point where they wanted to like put their own little touch in, which is pretty awesome.
And there's like whole another aspect of like creativity, like when like people mod it and stuff. Because then they
Yeah,
can. I thought it was interesting, like Mojang, like they support modding, right? Because they're always
yeah.
like, yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And honestly, there's probably a lot of people who would tell you that like some of the mods in Minecraft are better than just Minecraft.
Yeah,
So
some of them
I
are insane too, like a whole nother game basically.
pretty much people are crazy with some of the things they can do. There's a lot of like really talented people out there who, they don't work for any big companies. They just kind of want to do things to do things. So I'm more than happy to let people do things.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, are you that kind of person that like, it just fully passionate about like making games and stuff that you would do it without like, let's just say like, because of course you need to like live and stuff. Like, would you do it like without pay? Is like, is that how far your passion extends for it?
Yeah, I think so. That's something I've always thought about is would I do this without pay? Well, right now I'm not making any money, but I guess like would I do it as like a career venture, even with the big risks? Because in video games are some of the biggest risks you can take. They're hard to make profits off of. And then also like there's always the chance that nobody's gonna play your game.
Mhm.
So there's tons of games released every minute out there. So I'm always like, who do I want to make the game for, Because there is the chance that nobody's gonna play it. So when I go into this, I really think I want to make it for myself. I want to make something
Yeah,
that I will enjoy playing because if nothing else, maybe I'm the only person who's ever gonna play it. So at least like I could have a really good time. It'd be fun to just kind of like see a vision that I had on the screen. I
yeah,
think that's a
true.
really unique feeling.
And even like years from now, you can like look back on that and then maybe even like remake it. Like let's just say like 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah, technology will probably be pretty different. there'll probably be tools that'll make it even easier. So that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, what game engine do you use? Because I know there's like Unity, there's like Godot now. I've seen
Yeah.
someone named DebDuck. I knew he was messing around with that, and then yeah, like
So
what's your tool of choice?
right now I use a Pygame, and it's the thing about Pygame, I guess, is it's not like a super optimized game engine. So you're constrained a little more in the sense
Mm.
that like it just it doesn't have the tools necessary to take use all the power of your computer. So you have to get your games running like as smoothly as possible by like quick fixes and just making sure like you're using all your resources properly. And then it's also very hands off. So it's good for learning in my opinion. I think the one thing I liked about Pygame is when I went into game dev, I didn't really go into it like, oh man, I'm gonna start my game dev journey. I was well, I'm a statistics major and I was trying to get an internship at the time. And that was pretty rough because the internship market is just like super flooded.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, what can I do to like make myself more marketable? I can learn Python. And then I was like, what's something I didn't want to just like do boring coding stuff in Python. I kind of wanted to like have fun doing it. So I was like, what's something simple I could do? What if I try making a game? And that's kind of where the whole process started. So, and then the Pygame community, it's pretty small, but it's like been around for a really long time. So there's still like a lot of people who are willing to help you,
That's
but
good.
yeah, it's not like a too large of a community where you feel like too drowned out.
And then what also when you're creating a game and stuff, what do you think are the most like creative aspects of it that go into like your process?
Hmm. Um, I would say probably the most creative part of the game, I think the features, because the features are really what like take all the elements and kind of put them together. So like something like jumping, you have to draw the art so the jump
Sure.
looks good. You have to get the physics right so that the jump feels good. And then what's also going to play another role is the sound effect.
Yeah,
Not sure
true.
if not sure if you've ever like tried playing games without sound effects, but it kind of takes away from something because there's just kind of like that feel that those sound effects can give you. So I think when you're coding features, it really has to like encapsulate everything in order for it to like feel right. So that's where like I feel like I'm really like pushed.
Oh, like that's the most challenging part of it, or
Yeah, it's the most challenging, but it's mostly because I feel like that's where like you have to be creative about it.
oh, true, yeah. Kind of just combining them all into like one thing. And even like that's such a it's like well to me it seems like a simple thing like just a jump, but then there's actually so much to that.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of like math that goes into it. Or
You
like
want to
I
give
said,
like an example real quick? Like what kind of
sure. So a platformer.
yeah.
The way most platformers work is that they're based off of you can think of like you ever use like grid paper?
Yeah, yeah.
You just kind of fill those little grid papers with little like squares. And those are like when maybe you fill up like, 100 of them, that makes your level.
Mhm.
So what you have to do is you have to get the player to collide with those squares and stay on top of them. So you're doing a bunch of like rectangle collisions,
You have
which
to like
basically,
detect player is on, like this coordinate or whatever too.
yeah. And then when you want them to do something like run or jump, you need to incorporate some aspect of physics. So I'm not sure if you've ever taken a physics class before.
I avoided that at all
No.
costs, dude. Like
Yeah. So you have to find a way to implement velocity, acceleration, and gravity. And I guess gravity and acceleration are kind of the same thing, but you have to implement that into your game. So you basically use like actual physics formulas to do it.
jeez.
And then on top of that, you also have to make sure it feels good to play because like sometimes the most realistic like physics just don't feel fun.
Yeah, especially
So
in like a cartoony style kind of game, you know.
yeah, definitely. Like if Mario followed all the rules of physics, it'd be an infinitely less fun game.
Plus, it wouldn't jump as high either, and like,
Yeah, he jump like 2 feet and land on his head. So
dude, I remember I in Stencil I was trying to make my character jump, and then I did right. I made him jump up, but then I forgot to turn the gravity on, so he just kept floating up, and he like flew out of the level. It was like I don't know, but even like the bugs are fun sometimes, you know, like if you accidentally find them and stuff.
yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing like bug catches and fixing them. Some of them are a little more frustrating than others because sometimes you don't always know
True.
what's going wrong. Sometimes you just see it on the game screen, but you don't understand like, okay, I don't get why this is happening. So it takes a lot of tinkering around. But like I had mentioned earlier, sometimes those bugs just become features, or it's just fun
Yeah.
to like, because even like big budget games that are released all still have bugs, and a lot of
Oh,
people,
you know what it just made me think about?
hmm,
Have you ever played Goat Simulator?
I have.
Isn't that whole thing just like a bug basically? And then they just made it into like a whole game around it?
Pretty much, they just kind of like took these like really wonky physics and like, you know what? What this is fun. Or even like, are you familiar with speed running?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of those speedrunners take advantage of like just little bugs left in the game. So you could argue that like some of those bugs make the game a better game. So I think it's always finding like that balance, you know. You want to
Yeah.
make your game polished, but you're never going to be able to get it to the point where it's perfect, I don't think.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. You know, there's always like a post I've seen is like you fix one bug and then like thousand more pop up, right?
yeah, that's definitely happened. Because you know, even changing one little thing in your game can like influence a lot of other things. So you're just like, oh man, something I was trying to implement like a feature. It's called frame rate independence. I won't get too into it. It's a little technical. But what ended up happening is I kind of had to redo my entire game from scratch for to get this to
Jeez.
work. So yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
because you changed the tiles or something, right? I think I saw that in your video.
Yeah. So in short, you want your game to run the same on everyone's computer. So if you have like a 2005 laptop and I have like this super powerful gaming rig, I want both people to be able to play the game.
Yeah.
But there were some physics problems, and I ended up having to restructure the way the game worked.
From scratch, you said, jeez.
Pretty much, especially like with the art, I had to like resize a lot of the art or like just redraw it. Pretty much the only thing that kind of stayed intact was the music, because thankfully that doesn't get affected too much
Yeah, pretty
by
much.
the performance. But that was a little rough. But
Do
you
you
know,
have those moments often, like where you have to like go back quite a bit, you know, and then like rechange some things?
yeah, definitely. Even bugs aside, sometimes you'll just like have this really cool idea, and then you'll implement it, and you'll be like, this this is not as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
So that's a real honestly, that's probably the most demoralizing feeling I felt. Where like, because even with like bugs, I don't think I've ever ran across a bug where, given some time and thought, I wasn't able to fix it. But sometimes you just like put your all into like drawing something and coding the feature like for a specific enemy or something, and then you just put it in. You realize this isn't very fun, and I really don't want to like scratch all my hard work, but I might just have to.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of different creators can relate to that too, you know, like I know artists do that. Like they'll be working on a piece for like a while, putting like tons of time and effort and energy into that. And then realizing, I don't really like it, and then they'll get a new sheet of paper out or whatever, you know, and then
Yeah,
start again. Or even like writers too, for like writing a book, you know.
yeah, I definitely feel that. Even with YouTube,
Oh, true. Yeah.
you like make a video and you're like, oh man, I don't want to delete this, but I don't know if I want to post this either. So you just kind of have to like go back and try and fix things if you can.
Or even like one day you might really like it, you know, and then the next day you wake up, you're like, actually, maybe not, you
That
know.
actually, yeah, that happens to me all the time. Or like one day I wake up, oh, I like the way this looks, or I like the way this plays, and then the next day I'm like, ah. Or
That's
I'm able to like convince myself in my head, like, this is okay, it's fine. And then it slowly just eats at you, like, this isn't part of the vision. I have to just let it go.
Do you think sometimes you might overjudge yourself in terms of like, people probably won't play this, or like stuff like that? Like, do you have those kind of moments, or
Um, I think I kind of do the opposite. I kind of underjudge it, like how you had mentioned. Yeah, people won't play this, so I kind of use it as an excuse, maybe to like let some things go. So like, I can't get this working, but people aren't gonna play this, so whatever. I'll just leave it. And eventually, because I really do feel like I make games for myself, it'll just kind of eat at me, and I'll think like, oh man, this isn't what I want. So I'll go back and fix it. I want it to work the way I want.
it's cool that like because you mentioned that you make games for like for you, right?
Hmm.
And I like that because you don't have like outside pressures, of like, oh, I have to in, like make this a certain way, and then you but pretty much have like that whole creative freedom to like make it however you want.
Yeah, it's a really liberating feeling. And there's also like no time constraints, which is
Oh yeah, like
nice.
no deadlines and like
Yeah, I imagine this would be a very stressful job if you had like deadlines. Because even like doing things like drawing pixel art takes me hours.
hmm
I don't consider myself like a very artistic person when it comes to like the more like traditional arts. So it's something like drawing pixel art or making music that can take me like a really long time. So
hmm
it's nice to just kind of be able to do it as like a relaxing thing, as opposed to like, man, I got to get this done or else, I'm
yeah.
gonna get fired.
Something that I think it was, what episode was it? It may have been episode 4 or 5. Um, I had an illustrator named Millie. She was on. She talked about how it was necessary for her, at least, to have like a divide between like her work and like her creative passion, because during the day she like designs toys, and then at
Mhm.
night she would do like her illustrations, on the side. Like, do you have something similar of like you don't think you could like you want to keep it separate? Like, how do I word this?
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, keep it separate
Yeah,
from work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
that's actually something I'm really struggling with right now. I'm trying to figure out the answer myself because uh, when it comes to work, I'll do it, but I'm not like super passionate about it. It gets
Right.
done, it gets done. Well, I was like making games and coding to some extent. Like I really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun doing it. Even when it's like not fun, I still have fun. But something, I guess I'm at a crossroads right now. This is my last year of college. So I kind of need to figure out like, okay, what do you want to do? And I could, just continue my career path, get like a good job or go to grad school or whatever, and keep my two, hobby career separate paths. But also something I kind of been considering is maybe there's like a middle ground.
What about like? Do they have like freelance game devs? Is that a thing?
Um, a lot of game like actual hired game developers are contracted,
Oh, okay.
I believe, unless you like can land a job at something like Nintendo.
hmm
Usually studios just kind of like come and go. I don't take my word on it. I don't have like a ton of insight on the game development world, but I do know it's like a pretty tough market to be in.
hmm
So, but I feel like like I said, there's like maybe a compromise. Something I've been considering is maybe not doing statistics anymore, but doing computer science.
Oh,
Because even though I would maybe not be working on games, I would still be getting better at coding, and that will
true.
help me with my games to kind of bridge the two worlds together.
Yeah, because like when you learn stuff for like computer science, you maybe can apply that to your games too.
Yeah.
Aren't they like different programming languages though? Because you're in Python, right? And then I assume they learn like C sharp. Is it called C sharp, or I don't know?
Yeah,
C
so the
plus.
C sharp is like for the Unity game engine.
Oh,
The thing
okay.
about programming language is that once you know one, you kind of know them all.
Oh, really? They're kind of like
Yeah.
interchangeable a little bit, or?
So they're all very similar, and like a lot of the fundamentals are the same. It's just maybe you'd have to like learn the syntax is a little different.
Mm.
I guess it's kind of like if you know Spanish, you'd probably be pretty good at learning French because they
Oh,
are
okay.
from the
Yeah, that makes.
Latin
I like.
roots.
Yeah, that analogy makes sense.
Hmm. So I've had different like I've experience with Python, C++, different things. And actually, I guess fun fact: if you ever take computer science courses at university, you'd probably be surprised, but they don't actually teach you like a ton of coding. They
Really?
kind of
My roommate was, or at least like last year in college, he's a CS major, so.
yeah. Once you get past like your first year, they basically don't teach you coding. They kind of expect you to teach it to yourself,
Mm.
and you learn like more higher level, I guess, concepts. It's like more like big big ideas. But as far as like going in and like how to code it, they kind of just like all right, use Google to figure it out. And that's kind of the life of being a programmer is you just kind of learn to learn, definitely. So swapping around like different languages isn't like a huge deal because even in like just technology in general, it's always changing. So
Yeah,
like if
true.
you're working on one thing, like I work for the USDA, and people always come up to me and like, hey, how do you do this in Excel? I have no idea how to use Excel, but I'm usually able to figure it out for them just because I've been able to understand how to like frame the problem and how to ask Google for help. And it's kind of a strange thought that like a lot of people just aren't sure how to frame their questions for Google or just any other person. But I think that's definitely something I've learned from coding and like game development is like how do you like specifically pinpoint what the problem you're trying to solve is?
Would that be considered like critical thinking, I guess, or?
Yeah, the term that likes to get thrown around is problem solving.
Oh,
A lot of people say, but I like the term critical thinking as well because it really makes you like yeah really analyze what the issue is and how maybe even like an idea of how you think you'd solve it.
even thinking like outside the box is kind of like what you made me think of when you're like talking about it right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good. I like that. You definitely have to think outside the box. So yeah, as far as like different programming languages, I'm pretty confident I'd be able to pick it up. But I guess the real question would be like, what would those like? What would I be able to learn at like a graduate computer science? And like, is it really what I want to do?
Hmm.
That's kind of the crossroads I'm at.
Okay. Like how? Hmm. I mean, I guess what you could. I guess I'm gonna give you advice right now, but like,
I'd be happy
um,
to hear it.
I guess you just gotta try it. Like try different things and see which one like resonates with you the most.
Yeah. So your main field is photography, right?
I'm currently a public health major.
And
Uh,
then do photography on the side? Is that like we say your creative passion?
yeah, I guess I would define myself as a photographer mainly. I haven't been shooting as much. I do a lot of different things. I feel like I'm pretty branched out in
Mm.
like different creative things. I should probably like narrow down on something, but
So how do you like? Do you like to separate them and just kind of have like your PA over here, creative over here? Or do you feel like there's like a bridge you want to make, or do you just want to lean to one side?
um, well, okay. Here's kind of how I see it. So because being like a creator or creative, right, is just such a broad term. I feel like I can have that be both, and like
Mhm.
I mean, kind of separate, kind of not. Like I'm working on trying to get this tech venture running, but like I got to sort out some legal stuff. But like that would be, like work basically. But then also I have like, I like writing, I like making art, photography, stuff like that. And then here, like that could intertwine with like working and stuff because, for instance, doing photo shoots for clients, art commissions, writing a book and then selling that book,
Hmm.
But I don't know, I see it. I think like I would encompass both for me. Like that's just I think because of it because it's so broad,
Cool.
I just think that since being a creator in general is just such a broad term and like so many different things can fit under that, I feel that it's possible to have it both as work and stuff that you do like on your own like for enjoyment and stuff because it just because you can really separate the different aspects of creating. For instance, let's just say for I'll just use photography again as an example. Like I can create stuff like for myself, because I just enjoy like taking photos, but I can also do client work and things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good answer.
It took me a moment to formulate it, but
Yeah, I think that kind of like details like a compromise, I guess, right?
yeah,
Like you're doing it for yourself, but you're also maybe taking it a little more out there. I think that's right now what I'm looking for with game dev. I haven't found it yet. Right now, it's just kind of like a creative hobby on the side, but I I really want to make it that. I think. I feel like I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't at least try, like you said.
hmm and even like later down, like hey, like maybe you might think like, oh hey, maybe I don't want to do it as both, then from there you can decide. But I think, yeah, just trying it out and seeing what works for you.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm doing right now. I'm definitely taking advantage of the whole quarantine situation
hmm
to just like really hone in on working on things maybe I wouldn't normally do. So
That's cool. Yeah. And then, hey, do you want to reveal our characters that we made?
yeah, let's do it.
so we, so for natural selection, we decided to make each our own like enemy for the game that the duckling would go up against, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I'll screen. Do you want to go first or me?
I can go first.
Okay.
So I guess as a little background, right now I'm working on like a beach level. So we both agreed on aquatic themed enemies. So let's see.
Do you want me to screen share or do you want to screen share? Or?
I sent you the AceRate file, right?
Yeah. Should I open the
See.
one with Sprite or idle?
I think Sprite is probably better. I ended up kind of I used Idle as my outline, but I ended up
Oh,
kind of
okay.
working with it too. So
All right. I'm gonna open this. Oh wait, I don't wanna see it, so I'm gonna cover it.
all right.
Okay. I'm gonna screen share. All right. Can you see this on your screen?
Yeah,
Cool. Look at this.
and then I made a little animation
Oh,
loop for
nice.
it.
Cool. I'm gonna play it. That's cool.
So yeah, that's
What do you think? What's the story behind this guy and like what kind of things is he gonna do to the duckling or like?
yeah. So originally, my vision for this crab was that he was basically gonna like shoot out his arm and try to pinch the duckling. So he'd be kind of like a long ranged enemy that you'd have to go through. And then when I drew it out, it's when like my vision and maybe like practicality didn't come into super fruition because I drew him out like shooting his arm out, and if I wanted him to shoot it like really far, it looked a little funny.
hmm
So right now, I just kind of like used him sticking his arm out as like an idle animation.
Oh, okay.
But what I think I want to do is kind of expand on that idea of like having a ranged enemy, but maybe like put in like multiple crabs and maybe make like mazes that you have to
Oh, that'd
traverse
be
while
pretty
these
cool.
like
Yeah.
crabs are trying to pick at you. Because when I think of a crab, I think of just like this little creature that just like kind of picks at
Like
you.
scurrying around and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to.
And then I was told he looks like Mr. Krabs, which
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I can saw once someone told me that I was like, oh, I see it now.
Can't unsee it.
Yeah,
Can you make an Easter egg where he has like the little?
the little suit to
Yeah.
tie. Yeah, I'll have to go back and do that for sure.
That'd be funny. It's pretty cool. Okay, you want to see mine?
Let's see it.
All right.
Oh, it's a pufferfish.
Wait, let me just check. You have outlines, right? Yeah, okay. Because I was like, okay, I gotta put outlines on this. Okay. Um, yeah, it's a pufferfish. So what I was thinking, I wasn't sure if the duckling was gonna be like underwater or like near the water, you know. But
Hmm.
I was thinking like the pufferfish like this wouldn't really do much. But then once it inflates, then like maybe the player can like jump on it, or like if it's inflated, then the duckling can't like pass, you know,
Yeah, that'd be a really cool
kind of
idea.
like a barrier or something,
Or
or like
maybe
a
you can even like manipulate the pufferfish. Maybe like there's obstacles where it's inflated in the way, and you need to find a way to deflate it. I think
yeah,
that,
that'd be
yeah,
pretty cool. Or even like a bounce pad, you know.
yeah, you could like use it as a bounce pad.
There's just so much that you can do. Like even with just that's what I love when I was making this. Like you can just there's so many possibilities, you know, especially when
Yeah,
you can,
it makes making it a lot more fun because
yeah.
you get to like think about little things like that.
Or maybe when it inflates, like it floats upward like out of the water or something, and like
Yeah, that'd just be like a really fun like little quirk to add.
yeah. I'm gonna play this. There's a lot of frames, but I just kind of looped a lot of different,
That's
you know.
awesome. I like the way it inflates. It looks really smooth too.
Yeah, I tried my best to like make sure it loops properly and stuff.
Yeah,
I
that'll
would
be really
definitely
fun.
probably go in and like do a little bit more like highlights on this, you know, and probably some shading stuff. But yeah,
I will say though, I think you did a really good job of encapsulating the cartoony style I have going.
yeah, I wanted to make sure like it kind of matches that style that you had. Because for me, I usually don't use outlines on my pixel art,
Hmm.
so like it was interesting for me. Like I don't know, just like an exercise for me to try working with outlines and stuff too.
Yeah, I just kind of like started with outlines, but for some reason I just really like the way they look. It reminds
Mhm.
me of you ever watch Ed and Eddie?
Yeah, dude, I was
Yeah.
on Cartoon Network back in the day.
Oh, dude, I loved Cartoon Network, and Ed and Eddie was my favorite show, and they always had the little jiggling outlines in that show.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always like liked that look. So I think that probably has something to do with why I still use outlines.
Dude, if you put Plank sitting on the beach in that level, or like, or a parody of him at least, then that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious, actually. I'll consider that.
Like an Easter, dude. I don't. I like Easter eggs in games. So if you add one, then like, I'll definitely, I'll definitely be playing it.
Yeah, those are always like fun to go and add because they're usually like pretty simple, but they're just like you can just make it look a little nod to the player.
Yeah.
I acknowledge you.
All
It's pretty
right.
awesome.
Pretty cool. You said you're gonna put it. You don't have to by no means. Like if like you want to put it into the game, that would be pretty cool.
No, definitely. Like I said, drawing the stuff takes me forever. So if someone has something that I think is good that they're willing to share with me, by all means, I'm happy to take it. And I really
Right.
like the idea. I think
Nice.
I really like the puffer fish, and there's just a lot of, like I said, a lot of fun things you can do with it.
Yeah, definitely. And Christian, did you have any last points that you wanted to tell the audience, or any last tips, maybe, or even like how you'd advise someone if they wanted to try out game dev? You know.
Yeah, I guess my one piece of advice that I wish I would have took maybe like a couple of years ago. Yeah, don't be scared. Just go into it with an open mind and go into it. Just try to have fun. It's uh, it's definitely a learning opportunity. I'm like I said, I'm by no means an expert in any of this, you know, but I've been learning a lot. I've been I think especially when it comes to like learning technical things, a lot of people go into it and like, I don't want to learn it because it's going to be boring. And I think game dev, if nothing else, it has the one perk of being really fun,
Hmm.
in that you really get to bring something to life, make a little world that is just previously in your head. So don't be scared. The internet is a fantastic place to start. You don't need school to learn coding or anything like that. I'm mostly self-taught, just by going and taking the time to watch tutorials or go online. And a lot of people, I think, they get stuck in like not learning things like coding because it's not fun for them. So do something you're interested in, you know? Don't try to like learn just to learn. I would say learn, but like learn because you want to make something in the process.
Right.
Have like an end goal in mind. And it's fine if that end goal changes, you know. I didn't expect to be a game developer, uh, but just have like some vision of where you want to go. Because otherwise I think it's really easy to get discouraged and just kind of like lose motivation.
Hmm.
Whereas if you always have that end goal, it's always going to feel like you're working towards something because it can be a really slow process. You know, it takes like months just to like make maybe a level, and it'd probably take you. It could take you years to even make something as good as the first level of Super Mario game that's like
All
50
the
years old.
process, right? Just
Yeah,
and
it's
just
so
like taking that first step to like start it, pretty
it
much.
really is. Game dev is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, just because of like all the elements that goes into it. But like I said, it's probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done as well. So don't be intimidated. Would be my advice. Just go into it with an open mind.
Nice. Those are some nice words to leave off on. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on Creator Cafe, and stay tuned for the next episode. See ya.